I'd just like to talk for a few minutes. Today is, at least in my life, a very, very special day. It's the day that Rudi took his Samadhi. In fact, it happened around this time, back in 1973. Uh, I would say it was the single most dramatic day I've ever lived through. I mean, you don't hit a mountain at 125 miles an hour, maybe more, and the person who is closest and you love the most in the world, you discover had left, he was gone. But it was a day of major transition, major change. I had to instantly examine myself and go deep inside and say, well, Stuart, what is this all about? You know? And the answer I came up with is, Stuart, you don't have a life anymore. It's not your life. It's really in service of God. You didn't survive this airplane crash in order to just go do more bullshit stuff in the world, you have to learn. And I knew there was a great deal of learning I had to do, how to truly be connected to God and to allow that connection to nurture people in my life and people who study here, people that are part of this meditation group, and people who have a sincere interest in developing their own spiritual life. Because ultimately, the goal of all this is Samadhi. One day we all leave, one day, as I always kid around, nobody's alive from the 17th century. And if they are, they're probably just a bunch of vampires, And we have to learn that the soul is born in these bodies to learn lessons that help it evolve, to get to a place where it really gets free of the kind of energy it has to experience on the earth. And the freedom from that is a state of samadhi. You understand? It's a oneness with God. And you leave, and we have the option, we can come back as bodhisattvas and spend our time really nurturing people and helping them to grow, or we can truly move on to another plane of consciousness where the soul has something else to learn in its endless evolution, that it doesn't just die and come to an end, it is endlessly evolving. Because creative energy in the universe is without limitation. And it means that we have to learn something. We have to keep evolving and growing. So what I'm talking about is very simple, one has to truly understand that every human being is a living manifestation of God. Every human being has to come here in order to learn, whether it's in one lifetime or 1,000 lifetimes, how to grow to a place in themselves where they become one with higher energy in the universe. That's what this education is about. It's a university here. There's many different departments we can learn from. And what we have to learn is how to get free, first of all, of ourselves. Because once you get free of yourself, you get free of all this karma that exists in one's life. Karma from this lifetime, karma from many lifetimes in the past. And what Rudi left us, which to me is the most amazing thing, and it leaves me in a state of wonderment all the time when I think that the greatest gift that he gave us is this double breathing exercise. The double breathing exercise was the way he evolved and grew into what he became in his life. And he left that to us. It was the greatest gift that Rudi gave the world. Not all the stories about Rudi and all the folk tales and all the other stuff, the Swami Rudrananda, and he wasn't really into ritual. He did it a little bit, but not it wasn't a hell of a lot into ritual. And I never saw him wearing a Swami outfit other than when he would sit and meditate in class. I never walked into his gallery and he was dressed in robes, Although the two of us used to go to these, spiritual convocations dressed in robes. And it was kind of funny running through the streets, hailing taxis. You felt like you were in drag, waving down taxis in robes, But Rudi was, he was just so real, he was so real. He was too real for most people to get because his energy went right through all the bullshit in the world. His energy truly cut through it. And when you were around him, you had to cut through it. You had no choice. His energy was too strong, too powerful, and you had to cut through it. Whether it was in his classes, at a Chinese restaurant, going to the movie, just taking a walk through Greenwich Village, going to parties. Used to go to parties with him occasionally and dinners and, but wherever he was, his energy cut through all the bullshit. We used to go to these parties and we would stay for 20 minutes. And I would say, Rudi, 20 minutes? He would say, look, after that, it really gets boring. What are we going to hang out for? And it's true, people hang out and they drink this and that, and and mostly, so we went from there to Chinatown. But that was what he was like. It was all magical. And his capacity to cut through all the bullshit was beyond all human comprehension. I mean, you had to be in a state of surrender to spend any time around Rudi. He left us this exercise. He left us this double breathing exercise. It was his greatest gift that he left the human race. And, and the key to it has always been from the day I met him, learning how to get grounded in the world. Because when you get grounded in the world, you become successful in working out your karma. You're not afraid of life. You're not afraid of doing in life. You're not afraid of having a vision in life, even having goals in life, that you can work towards. If you're grounded inside, then success becomes part of working out one's karma. And he was really into that. I mean, as I always told you that story, buy that building story, And, Rudi, I have 6, don't give me that shit. You have 6, just go buy the building. Anyone could do it with money. And it taught me how to get free of such an important element that I had to get free of in my life. And it was amazing. But he was like that, he was like that. And his kindness, his love, his sharing, his willingness to give Shakti any time of the day, practically. If you walked into his gallery, you could sit there and work with him. It was amazing. And one of the things I learned from him is how important it is to really work hard. A lot of people rejected that. What do you mean? I'm enlightened already. I used to hear this all the time. What do I have to do? I'm enlightened already. My guru tells me I'm enlightened. I don't really have to work on myself, And I'm saying, yeah, we all are enlightened, but we all live a football field behind ourselves, And somehow in life we have to catch up. And Rudi always said, work brings more work. And it's true. Work brings more work. Work brings commitment. Commitment brings focus. Commitment brings doing what you have to do to grow spiritually. And I remember when I used to run ashrams years ago, one of the things I used to really dislike were the cliques that used to form in ashrams. People got into these social gatherings together, you were a member, you weren't. And I used to talk about it, but it never did any good. People, were very cliquish. And I never liked it. And Rudi used to talk about the same thing, because we're not in meditation groups in order to have social relationships with other people. We're in them to build a spiritual life, to get what is being taught so that we can grow inside ourselves and have a spiritual life. And the rest of it comes, but I think that this is absolutely essential to learn. And I learned that from Rudi when he used to tell me, don't love me. And I said, Rudi, that's impossible. He said, don't love me. And I would say, Rudi, he said, just learn what I have to teach. One day I won't be here anymore. Learn what I have to teach. And that one day, which I thought was going to be 40 years from then, came. He was 45 years old, and he always told me he was going to live to 84 years old. He always told me also that he was going to be in an airplane crash. I heard that many, many times from him. Didn't tell me I was going to be in the plane with him, but he told me he was going to be in an air. Please try and sit up. Christine, sit up and do the minute. And all of this is the gift that he gave us, which is this meditation that we do here, where the energy gets so strong and so powerful. And I can understand if people get, they don't come, it might be too much for them at this time in their life. But for those of us that do come and do work at this thing, it's a completely remarkable way to build a connection inside ourselves with God, with higher energy in the universe. And the wonderment of it is it takes nothing away from life. In order to get, I had somebody in the class this afternoon telling me how through this meditation, she got much closer to her children, that there's so much love in her family now. And it almost brought a tear to my eye, that this kind of thing happens because the karma needs to be worked out. So it's not, as I say, and Rudi used to say, this or that or that or that. It's, I will get strong enough to do this and that and that and that. And whatever the universe sends to me that I have to work out as a human being. This meditation that Rudi left us helps do this. It helps build that kind of a system inside ourselves. And then there are no excuses. We just do. If I wanted to start making excuses, I'd have class here once a month. This is not easy to do, 7 days a week or 7 times a week with many people. But there's no excuses because one makes a commitment to serving God. And one makes a commitment to growing and to building an inner life that enables one to ultimately attain a state of samadhi. So it's not for us to celebrate Rudi's samadhi, it's for us to be grateful that this extraordinary being left this meditation for us, left this teaching for all of us to do, that we can use in our life. This unbelievable being, this man who transformed New York City into a temple. And that was, to me, I was always in awe when I used to see this place that was always kind of a horror for me to live. I once left New York when I was 25 and I swore I'd never go back again. Transformed that city into a temple. It was sacred. And it's one of the reasons I moved back from Texas to New York. I figured if you can do it in New York, because that song, you can do it anywhere, And I went back because I figured that's got to be the hardest place on the earth to have a spiritual life. And I went there simply for that reason, because I remember my teacher telling me that you got to take big responsibility on yourself. And you have to truly, open to a situation that really demands, that you have to truly grow inside. Rudi spent 13 years with Muktananda, and trust me, he had no deep love for Muktananda. I mean, I was walking on 8th Street in Manhattan with him, and this young kid was selling Day-Glow yo-yos. And Rudi bought one. And he said, this is a great gift for Muktananda. I'll never forget it. I laughed so hard. You know, there was no love there. But I said, you know, and then I remember when Muktananda came to America, you know, and I spent a lot of time with Rudi, with Muktananda. I was, you know, there. And I saw what used to go on. And to me, it was horrible the way Rudi was treated. It was horrible the way they just kind of, he made the ashram raise about $20,000, and then he personally matched it so we could bring Muktananda to America. And when Muktananda got there, I mean, it was terrible the way they would treat. So I said to him, Rudi, why? What? Why do you do this? I asked him, we were in Dallas, and he said, Stuart, I have to study with him. I've never met anyone in the world who can break me down. Muktananda is the only person I've ever met who can break me down. And so that's why I go. And that's why I, you know, kiss his foot and do all the things you have to do with Indian swamis, you know? And I was astonished. I said, my God, 13 years. He said, yes, Stuart, 13 years of having to be someplace to be broken down. You know, it ended that year. You know, he finally said, it's enough. I can't continue to go to this man's ashram. And I remember I was in India with him, and we went to Ganesh Puri, and they tried to drag Rudi out of a car. I'll never forget it. Physically tried to drag him out of a car so that he could go see Muktananda. And Rudi said, no, I'm finished with that. I'm here to sit at Nityananda's shrine. So all of this, when I hear people's excuses and this and that, none of it rings a bell to me. 13 years of being with a master that was impossible to be with. And I'm not saying this because I heard it from somewhere. I saw it with my own eyes. Only because that teacher was strong enough to break him down. This meditation that he taught is strong enough to break all of us down. And it has to be respected. And it's not easy, because when you do it, you come up against all the bullshit inside, all the stuff in one's life that has always made you avoid doing deep spiritual. You'll come up against it. And then it has to be broken down. The Shakti of this meditation will do that. It's strong enough to do it. So, you know, an amazing being, Rudi. He certainly deserves Samadhi. What he went through in his life, what he gave to people, you know, his total service to God, you know, and doing it in a place like New York City, which was to me amazing, you know. And this day is a very precious and a very sacred day. And we have to really treat it that way. You know, again, most of you have, I think Bob Sink, and I don't know if Tom Tompkins ever met Rudi, but, you know, a few people might have met Rudi. Most of you have seen pictures of him. You've seen, you know, you never was in his presence. I was in his presence for 6 years. And I have nothing but profound gratitude for just my life, that I'm here sitting with all of you, trying to transmit this teaching and trying to help everyone that comes to these classes to build an inner life that is strong enough to ultimately have their Samadhi. Because that's the goal. That's the ultimate goal of all of this. It's not to make money. It's all bullshit. I've never met a happy person with lots of money. It's not even to have houses and cars and big families. And yeah, it's all part of the steps on the ladder that we have to learn to love so that we can surrender it. Because ultimately, as Rudi once told me one day, he came back from India, he said, Stuart, I was sitting in the back of his, you know, apartment there, and he came up and he sat down, he said, Stuart, I just want you to know, ultimately, we're all in this alone. And that's really true, because ultimately we all have to face God. not some day of judgment but did we do the work in this lifetime in order to attain a state of samadhi? Not you did bad things, you good things, we're going to send you to hell, heaven. I mean, there's no greater hell than the human mind, I mean that. No greater hell than the human mind. So it's just consciousness. Did we do the work in this lifetime on ourselves in order to attain a state of grace? And he left this meditation. And you all tell me how powerful this meditation is. And it really is, It's not me that's doing it. It's Rudi and Nityananda and all kinds of, higher forces of energy that flow through that create the power of the meditation. And they're doing it for a reason, because the consciousness of people has to be uplifted. Look at this crazy world we live in. Look what's going on in this world. It's just like a lunatic asylum, So consciousness, person by person, nobody's going to save the world, but person by person, the consciousness of each and every one of us. And I don't separate myself from having to learn this. My consciousness, all of your consciousness has to be raised and has to be developed. And we have to learn how to let life and the teachings of life and whatever life has to give us break us down, because life is the real guru, not Stuart, not even Rudi, not Nityananda. The job of Rudi and Nityananda, and now my job, is to help build people to where they can truly sit in front of life and get the real teachings that will break them down, that'll force them to get past themselves into a very deep state of surrender that allows them to become a child of God, a living being that is being guided by higher energy in the universe. And we have to be able to have fun, laugh at ourselves, not take ourselves so serious. There's nothing serious about any of us except this thing in our brain that makes us feel so tense about ourselves, I mean, it's like a grain of sand on a beach. Every human being is like a grain of sand on a beach. One little microcosmic entity. It's like that Mount Meru mandala, I don't know if you know that, but the mountain is like, 60,000 feet high. And then there's an ocean around it and another mountain chain, and there are 13 of them, and then there's billions of them flowing through the cosmos. We are the totality of everything that exists in the universe. At the same time, we are one of billions flowing through the cosmos. And that kind of consciousness, when applied to our inner work, is very profound, because then we don't live, with opinions about people and life. We really surrender, we let go. We are one of billions. At the same time, we are a totality inside ourselves. So please, everyone, try and work really deeply inside. We'll have a meditation class. And in this class, really, just try to picture Rudi sitting there with that big smile on his face, right at the center of your heart. And just be grateful. Be grateful for him having given us this, us being here on Zoom. He made it. Somebody asked me today, how would Rudi deal with life today? I said, I have no idea, but I'm sure he would do something unbelievable. That's what I told him. It would be something very special he would do. But I can't say what. I know what I have to do, and it's this. And at some point, I'm going to get another vaccination in 6 days. And at some point, I want to have a center again. Different than I did it before, but a place where people can come and I can do hands-on healing work and that kind of meditation practice and do retreats. And I can, not me traveling, even doctors don't make house calls anymore, but people coming, 10 people, 20 people coming to do retreats. And that's one of my goals, to do that. So, things are changing. God bless you all for being here. And let's have a meditation class. Question. I'll be happy to try and answer.
Stuart, could you speak a bit about transcending the physical pain in the body during meditation?
Where's the pain?
Where I'm sitting, like in my legs, just the seated position.
The first answer to that question is that when you do this meditation, you discover all the blocks, the things that are wrong with you. Areas where you're tight, areas where you need to stretch, you get loose. And that's not a bad thing, because then you can do something about that. If you have pain in your legs, you might, I don't know about now, but after this COVID thing, get a masseuse to work on you, get a chiropractor to work on you, and also you can literally breathe into those areas, because mostly when you have pain, the pain is not necessarily so big, but you allow your mind to get connected to it, and the mind feeds the pain, and the pain gets bigger. So if we keep our attention in the third chakra and don't allow our mind to roam into the pain will probably lessen and maybe even disappear. The mind has a way of really, it just makes things worse when you focus, because it really, when people have that kind of difficulty, and they keep thinking about it and thinking about it, they keep feeding the problem, and the problem gets worse. But if you're detached, and then the energy of the meditation can flow into your legs, can flow into your hands, it can flow to wherever the pain is, that energy will help get rid of the pain. But the first thing is, you got to realize, when you start opening really deeply, you discover all the things that are wrong, all the tightnesses, all the tensions, the resistances you have. And then by focusing, being centered, you allow that energy to come. And it's the greatest healing energy. It can help you to get over most of these problems.
Thank you.
You do yoga. Hatha yoga would be a good thing to do. That'll really stretch and expand the muscles. Does anyone else have a question?
I have a question, Stuart. It's Paula.
Yes, Paula.
I experienced Rudi so strongly today, and I'm so grateful for him and for you and for this meditation. And this meditation, I felt love, just pure love, the strongest I felt it in these meditations. There was nothing else. It was just pure love, and it was so beautiful. Tears were just streaming down my face. And could you talk about love? It's poignant how we block it.
Just did. I don't have to try. Did, my dear. That's what it is, you know? Unconditional love, surrender, gratitude for those that made it possible for us to be here today. And love has to be unconditional. It has to be, you know, it brings tears to your eyes. It brings joy, happiness inside. And it all stems from gratitude to the teachers, the people, our parents, our siblings, people, you know, that make it possible for us to be here today, that have made that possible. And they say God is love. That's the ultimate goal. You know, there's nothing left of us except love. That's Samadhi. And that's the way we have to live in the world and leave the world, you know?
The other word that came to me was empty. I wanted to be empty and just be filled with this pure love.
Okay. I have no answers to that. That's, Paula, that's what it's about. Not being fully yourself, being free of your ego, your insecurities, your tensions. Or if you're not completely free of them, at least you know how to transform them. You know, they don't get in the way anymore. You can transform them. And bless you, dear. I mean, I couldn't have heard a better thing on Rudi Samadhi. I mean it. That was just wonderful. Thank you. Does anyone else have a question, a comment?
Stuart, it's Claudia.
Yes, Claudia.
This morning I read your account of from 2011, the revision you had done about.
Claudia, I can't understand you. You have to talk on.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was rereading your account of the day, your last day with Rudi. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
I hear you, but you know.
And I was so.
Question, Claudia.
Well, I was so grateful to read it and to feel more than I've ever felt the energy that you shared. And
Well, Claudia, that's why I write the books I write. It's to share my experience, and hopefully it finds a home in people, you know, especially the spiritual books. I've written a few novels, which are a little bit different, but the spiritual books, it's, you know, I don't know, in order to write them, I have to get free of me. I decided I'm going to work on another book. I said I wasn't going to write any more books, but you know what to do, kind of like a junkie. So but I have to be free of me, and then all this stuff comes. There's wisdom comes. I mean, that book, Moving On, Finding Happiness in a Changed World, all aphorisms, almost like 200 pages of aphorisms. I mean, people call me up and tell me they read these things every morning, you know, and it helps them be clearer during the day. But bless you, Claudia, and thank you. And I couldn't think of a better response to things I've written than what you just told me. I mean it.
I've been feeling it all day.
Good. Does anyone else have a question? This is a day for renewal. You understand? It's a day for regeneration, resurrection. That's what this day is about. So let's all be grateful for this incredible heritage that we have, for these amazing teachers like Rudi and Nityananda that have, passed this work down to us, and take it with us. Let it live in our hearts. Let it live in the deepest parts of ourselves. That's what it's for. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay. God bless you all. Thank you. And wow, it's just wonderful to share all this with everybody. God bless you. Thank you. And there'll be a class tomorrow evening.
Thank you so much, Stuart.
Grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Bye.
Thank you, Stuart. Good night.
Thank you.